So, friends, this is our third meeting on environmental issues. In the first lecture on environment, I first tried to explain the meaning of studying relationship between population and environment. In sociology particularly, I said that we can make a distinction between two types of sociologists, sociologists of environment and environmental sociologists. For sociologists of environment, environmental variables are the dependent variables and structural variables are independent variables. So, they explain differences in environmental beliefs, action, movements on the basis of social structure, history and biographical situations of the participants. Environmental sociology takes a Durkheimian view of social sciences, and it says that environmental factors like other factors, ecological factors are a major determinant of collective consciousness, social representations of people, and studying social representations of environment as dependent variable by taking ecological conditions as independent variables, you are studying environmental sociology. Then in the second lecture talked about differences in perceptions on environmental issues between developed and developing countries, referred to Kyoto Protocol and failures of some subsequent conferences on development, even failure to implement Kyoto Protocol, and a hope some new agreements or new conferences, workshops and protocols are giving us and which are to happen, one in this month in this year only, and the possibilities of future protocols and workshops. The main problem is that the developed countries which have already attained a certain level of development and which cannot live without having further development, or who just cannot think of de-development or reducing their standard of living, for them it becomes extremely difficult to curtail emission of pollutants in the environment, because to reduce the amount of pollutants in the environment, then they will have to produce less. They will have to produce less on manufacturing and agriculture sector, which they are not ready to do so. And the problem of developing countries is that they are saying that if you compare the amount of pollutants released in the environment, then as compared to developed countries, their per capita emission is nothing. And also because in less developed countries there is a rising aspiration, a hunger for more and more development, and all political parties in democratic developing countries are putting a goal of catching up with the western countries before their people. It becomes difficult for them to commit to lower emissions of carbon dioxide or sulfur dioxide or chlorofluorocarbon. They think that developed countries are sort of compelling less developed countries to reduce their emissions unjustly, that since they are polluting much more than the less developed countries, the primary responsibility of reducing pollutant emissions lies with the developed countries. That is the major difference between the two. Now, today we will look into this issue of environmental impact a bit more, and before closure, because this is the third and last lecture on population and environment. So, I would also like to include in our discussion a little bit about environmental beliefs. Ultimately, it is beliefs which get actualized in the form of environmental movements. So, in order to study rise and fall, success and failure, or effectiveness or impact of social movements, focusing on the issue of environment, it becomes important for us sociologists to study beliefs regarding environmental issues. In this context, let me begin with this equation. UNFPA 1992 State of World Population document gave an equation which makes the complex issues involved in environmental impact very clear. According to this, the total impact on the environment is not a simple function of population. There are many more things in addition to population which affect the environmental impact. The total impact on the environment is determined by interaction of three factors. What are these factors? These factors are size of population, consumption standards and wastages of resources for each unit of consumption. Today, in place of wastages of resources, you can say impact, environmental impact for each unit of consumption. So, that means in the equation impact equal to population one variable, consumption per person another variable, a technology effect as a third variable. The formula shows that the total impact on environment depends not only on population, but also on consumption per capita and technology. That also means that there can be several synergistic links between or interactions between population, consumption and technology. Imagine that other factors remain same and our population is growing at rate 1.5% per year. Then it means environmental impact is also increasing at the rate of 1.5%. But if along with population our material standards or standard of living or consumption per person is also rising, and suppose that is rising at 2%, then the impact on environment will be much higher than 1.5%, because population is increasing and consumption per person is also increasing and there is a multiplicative relationship between them. So, due to this multiplicative and synergistic relationship, impact on environment will be much more if both population and standard of living are rising. And simultaneously, if we are using such a technology which has much more adverse impact on environment as compared to the traditional technology, then again the impact on environment will be much more.
So, it is true that developing countries are emission, they are producing more this carbon dioxide and all that as compared to developed, because this equation is showing something different.
We will come to this point in the next slide. We will come, but there may also be compensating effects of population, consumption per person and technology. Means if we are able to evolve a green technology, if we are able to evolve a technology which makes our resource usage much more efficient, that from the same resources we can take much more energy. From the same crude oil or from the same biomass, we can obtain more energy by using more recent technology, then that will offset the effect of population growth and rising consumption per person. It is also possible that population is rising and per capita income is also rising, but we are using better technology, more green technology, a technology which is saving of resources and which pollutes less, and in that case the overall impact is either absent or it is much less than in absence of this technology there would be. So, there are three factors, not one. Now, environment will be least disturbed if that means if you want to reduce the impact on environment, then there are three ways. One, that the population growth should be low. Obviously, environment will be least disturbed if population is growing at a slower rather than a faster rate. Second, consumption per capita is less, that is people exercise restraint on consumption. Remember Gandhiji's concept of voluntary poverty. If we decide to remain poor, if we decide not to raise our standard of living further, if we decide not to raise our per capita income further, not to use more food, more items contributed by polluting industries, then also environmental impact is less. And technology, if it is environment saving rather than environment degrading, that can also help us in ameliorating situation with respect to climate change or environmental degradation, other factors remaining same. And environment will be most degraded if population is growing at a fast rate, consumption per capita is uncontrolled, means consumption per capita is also rising fast, and technology is environment degrading rather than environment saving. As far as the position of less developed countries today is concerned, it has the bad effect on environment because of all these three factors. In less developed countries, population is rising fast, there is rising aspiration for higher standards of living, and per capita income is rising in most countries. They are using the old technology, which is maybe because that is less capital intensive and that is more readily available to them. So, they are using a technology which is much more environment degrading. So, because of the combined effects of all of them, there is an environmental problem in less developed countries. But as we have seen in the last lecture, that environment problems are not confined to countries, they are global. To take a local example, if there is environmental, if there is a problem of water pollution in Kanpur because of tanneries located in Kanpur and Unnao, then it is not creating a bad environment in Kanpur only. The Ganges up to Ganga Sagar, Allahabad, Varanasi, Patna, Ganga is polluted for all those cities which fall on the banks of Ganga subsequently. Whether tanneries of Jajmau are permitted to pollute Ganga or not is not a subject matter of Kanpur Municipal Corporation only. Allahabad and Varanasi and Patna are equally, they should be equally concerned, because the quality of drinking water, the quality of irrigation, the quality of vegetables, the quality of industrial produce, in all those areas through which the river Ganges passes will be affected. So, its impacts are global. Now, your question regarding pollutants, differences in pollution in different parts of the world, we will have some data. The above equation explains why the developed countries are more responsible for environmental damage, despite the fact that they have lower population, more advanced technology. We know that as far as the total population of the developed countries is concerned, that is hardly 20%, 80% population lives in the developing countries. And not only that, the rate of growth of population in the developed countries is also almost 0. So, they are not growing. That way, there should not be any additional impact on environment due to population growth. Also, they are using better technology, but they are also producing more pollutants, more emissions, carbon dioxide, fluorocarbons, and damaging ozone layer more than the less developed countries, because in that equation along with population and technology, you also have the factor of development, energy use per capita income, per capita cars, per capita refrigerators, per capita facilities of malls, and development. Population of 314.7 million, nearly 1/3 of the population of India, but its contribution to cumulative carbon dioxide emission from fossil fuels is 29.3%. So, America, which has only 4.61% of the world population, is contributing to 29.3% in terms of just one pollutant, and that is carbon dioxide emission. Same is the case with European Union, with 26.5% contribution to carbon dioxide. India has 17.5% of the world population, 1198.0 million, but its contribution to cumulative carbon dioxide emission from fossil fuels is only 2.2%. So, despite the fact that population of India is much bigger and the rate of growth of India's population is also much higher than that in the European Union or the United States, India's contribution to emissions is much less. The developing countries are far behind the developed countries in income and consumption, but they are increasingly developing the philosophy of development based on the experience of the developed countries. That means, they will also be polluting our global environment much more in the future. Their population and consumption behavior are changing fast, and as they produce sudden population explosion in the second half of the last century, they may soon cause the collapse of the ecological system. From one perspective, looked at from the perspective of the developed countries, the environmental problems are more because of less developed countries. Their population is rising fast, they are facing population explosion, there is a revolution of rising aspiration. The revolution of rising aspiration means that people want more and more of material success, material wealth, and the technology that they are using old technology. If the tanneries that are there in Kanpur, if such tanneries are located in United States, either they will be using the best technology which is not so polluting of the rivers, or they will not be given license. In the United States, they will not be given license for using old technology or not using green technology, not using technology that prevents them to pollute the river. Environment impact analysis, therefore, you see in economics today, whenever new industrial units are established, whenever new projects are established, the government of India has made it mandatory according to environmental laws to have environmental impact analysis. We are also running economics courses on environment impact analysis. For legal and ethical reasons, there is a law, environmental law now, and also ethical reasons, moral, social, ethical, global. It has become quite common to go for environment impact analysis of a development project. Different projects contribute to environment impact differently, like there is not much environment impact of a software company as compared to a manufacturing plant. A chemical plant is much more polluting of the environment as compared to a software company, but that is the direct impact. There may be other indirect effects. If the software company generates more money, if more people get more money and they raise their standard of living, and this raises demand for industrial products, manufacturing products more. They want more better textile, they want more electric gadget, they use more of energy, they use more of gas or coal or anything which is polluting of environment, then indirect effect of software company can be much more. So, in environment impact analysis, we look for both direct and indirect cause, indirect pollutants, direct effects of development projects, indirect effects of development projects, and that also takes us to the issue of what variables exactly should be considered in measuring the environment impact. The variables in measuring environment impact may be demographic, chemical, they may be related to air pollution, noise pollution, chlorofluorocarbons, methane, sulfur dioxide, so several things. Imagine that we establish a thermal power station in a tribal area. It certainly has economic benefits, more employment, more production, more employment, and maybe with more employment, more income. This will also lead to opening of some schools, some health centers, and people will benefit in education, health, infrastructure terms. There will be more roads, better road connectivity, maybe subsequently train, but it also has some adverse impacts. Sometimes even desirable development projects such as dams and canals, have impacts on population and society which are undesirable. Irrigation canals have helped in improving agricultural productivity, no doubt, and diversification in agriculture, and led to multiple cropping in several parts of Rajasthan, for example. But this has also created new problems. In the past, agricultural productivity in Rajasthan was much less, but Rajasthan also did not have floods. Today, if agricultural productivity has increased, this has also increased the possibilities and problems of floods. There is more of malaria. When there was no water, there was no mosquito also. But today you have water and you also have mosquitoes. So you have dengue, you have chikungunya, and you need to spend much more money on health facilities. In the earlier days, when they had water scarcity, means Rajasthan, life was certainly difficult. Now threat to physical survival is reduced, but risks have increased manifold. They include malaria, more money, more social conflicts, more power, more conflicts, more violence, and dissatisfaction due to rising aspirations. People are not happy. When the level of income was less, when per capita income was less, when more people were poor, they were more happy. Today income has risen, material prosperity has risen, but people are more dissatisfied. So, it is important to know before establishing a project what its various impacts are, and for that we have to decide what variables to consider. Usually in studying environmental impacts, we study demographic impacts, economic impacts, social impact, political impact, governance and quality of environment. Demographic impacts in terms of population size, growth, density, birth rate, death rate, infant mortality rate, maternal mortality ratio, life expectancy, aging, sex ratio, our typical demographic variables. In economic impacts, we include employment and unemployment rate, per capita income, per capita expenditure, percent expenditure on food items, percent employed in the formal and informal sector, percent living below the poverty line, wealth index, percent living in pakka house, etc. These are economic impacts. Social impacts, school enrollment rate, literacy, percent migrants, ethnic diversity, degree of social integration or harmony in society, empowerment of women and other vulnerable groups, Dalits, minorities, social capital or social support, trust, spirit of voluntarism or altruism, desire to do something for society, and degree of alienation, etc. There are political impacts, political participation, how many people have political awareness, how many people vote for parties during election, how many of them are part of political processes, and political schism, divisions, conflicts, voting behavior, etc. In governance, fairness in implementing various schemes, efficiency, effectiveness, transparency. With development in our country, corruption has also increased and problems of governance have arisen, transparency has reduced. Sometimes some people say that there is a trade off between development and corruption. If you want to bring down corruption to zero level, you cannot develop, and for development of the country you have to tolerate certain minimum amount of corruption, but not so much as we have today. Then quality of environment, which is measured in terms of different types of toxic elements in air and water, noise, climate change. Here I think let me also name a few pollutants. See, in last time I was saying that the goal is the rise in global temperature should not exceed 2%. The breakup would be like this. There are so many emissions which are leading to climate change. Among them, the situation is something like this. 0.5 contribution, this 0.5 will mean contribution to rise in global temperature by 0.5, then 1, 1.5 and 2. This is the goal, that is the global temperature should not rise by more than 2%. So, in this respect it is estimated that nearly 0.7 or so would be the contribution of carbon dioxide. This is the biggest pollutant. The biggest pollutant of all the emissions in the world is carbon dioxide, and because of rise in carbon emission alone, there will be increase in temperature by more than 0.7%. Then there is about 0.4% or so due to chlorofluorocarbons. This is another major pollutant. Then there is some small contribution of methane. Then there is nitrous oxide. Then there is ozone. And then some slightly other gases. Now, this is the prediction that around 1.5% will be increase in world temperature because of these factors. But if you go for what we call confidence interval in statistics, this is likely to happen, that the point estimate is around 1.5%, but the confidence interval, so the point estimate of rise in temperature is around 1.5, but the confidence interval is up to 2.5, nearly 1 to 2.5. In the period 1920 to 2030. It is estimated that in the period 1920 to 2030, there will be a change of nearly 2 degree in world temperature, and that 2 degree is caused mainly by carbon dioxide, chlorofluorocarbons, methane, nitrous oxide, ozone and other gases. Of them, the most or the biggest pollutant is carbon dioxide, that will lead to greenhouse, what we call greenhouse effect, and other pollutants will also raise temperature. The temperature rise would be slightly more than 1.5 and we want to stop it at 2, but the confidence interval say that it can be as low as 1%. There is vast amount of literature on environment today and a big debate. Some people are more optimistic, they say that no, not more than 1 degree centigrade will rise by 2030, and there are others who will say that it can be as high as 2.5. And you see, at global level, rise of even 0.1% can be quite significant. If the world temperature rises by just 0.1%, several of the island type of countries of the world can be submerged in the water. Several small islands like Maldives seems to be the most worried of all the islands, small countries, due to the impact of rise in temperature of the world. Okay, coming back to the issue of impacts, it may be noted that the above impacts do not exhaust the impacts of projects, some of which are positive, some negative. You can think of many more, you can think of cultural impacts, you can think of many more impacts than just socio-economic, demographic and environmental. Impact assessment theories require improvement in measurements and data. This is a big, very challenging area. Maybe some of you, though you are not economists, you are a sociologist, but you may find working on environment impact assessment quite challenging at your MPhil and PhD level. And greater consensus regarding standards of toxic elements. We do not have standards. Like how much carbon dioxide is safe, how much of various types of pollutants released in air and water are safe. There is no consensus, and that takes us to the issue, theoretical issue in sociology of risk society of Ulrich Beck, that there is a politics, cognitive politics of the standards, and then the complex issues of interaction between different pollutants. Maybe if you have two pollutants x1 and y, x1 and x2, if you have two risks x1 and x2, and you think that a measurement m1 of x1 is safe, measurement m2 of x2 is safe. First of all, this is debatable whether it should be m1 or slightly more than m1 or slightly less than m1. Industrialists will say one thing, scientists will say another thing, political classes will say something else. It is a matter of lobbying, understanding, scientific findings, experimental results and so on. But another issue that not all human beings may be affected in the same way by m1 and m2 amounts of x1 and x2. Old people may be affected in one way, children in another way, and maybe somebody who is already affected by m1 amount of x1, for him or her m2 amount of x2 is much more risky than for one who has not suffered from m1 amount of x1. So, there are complex linkages. It is a very challenging area. I am sure that some of you will take up environmental issues of this kind for your research. Yes, you have some question.
Sir, I was a bit confused that how economics people are taking this as a research question, as it is the interdiscipline question, and how sociologists are taking this thing as environmental problem, because the variables are many, and how they are taking it, how they are finding it, and how they are incorporate with their research. So
yes,
a bit confusion kind of things here.
Actually, this is the difference between coursework and research, in teaching and research. In teaching, we deal with certain specific issues and certain specific type of disciplinary knowledge. When we are teaching a course, we can teach a course in sociological theory, in economics of environment, in sociology of environment, in culture of environment. In research, we deal with issues, real life issues, and real life issues present before us unstructured problems, and maybe to solve those unstructured problems, we have to take help of so many disciplines. Now, example of unstructured problem is, say, why is sky blue, or why does sky appear to be blue to us? Physicists cannot answer this. Physicists alone cannot answer this question. Chemists cannot answer this question. And biologists alone cannot answer this question. Yeah? It is a matter of perception, and the moment you say perception, it involves psychology of perception, it involves cognitive psychology, it involves our biological genetic makeup, it involves laws of physics, laws of chemistry, laws of astrophysics, so many things. So, when you are talking of, say, environmental problems, studying environmental problems is a research issue. It is not sociology or economics or political science. So, in this we have to take help from so many disciplines, and how to take inputs from several disciplines, so that a real life unstructured problem of environment can be tackled. That is the art or science of research. So, in research we deal with unstructured problems. In teaching or in coursework we go for structured problems and structured solutions. It is very interesting questions, that when we are studying say environment or overall impact of something, suppose we open a number of BPOs in Kanpur. Now, what will be its impact? Some typical conventional traditional type of economists may say that to study impact of BPOs, we must study what will be BPO's impact on employment and unemployment, how much employment it will create in terms of numbers, rates. Somebody may be saying okay, in addition to employment we can also look at income, how much income it will generate and how will it affect the consumption pattern. But a sociologist or an anthropologist or political scientist can say that opening of BPO research literature shows that at several modern places of work there is also the issue of sexual harassment at workplace. Now, before opening of BPOs or these types of work, there may not have been many cases of sexual harassment at workplace. Opening of BPOs will also introduce cases of sexual harassment at workplace in Kanpur city. So, it depends, and what variables you look for. Somebody can say that we will be interested in studying whether BPO will have positive impact on birth rate or negative impact or maternal mortality ratio or empowerment. You have to make a choice.
Kind of
Variables, you have to make a choice. In any research, and this is how in general research differs from other things, teaching, dissemination of knowledge. In dissemination of knowledge you can be confined to some specific domain, but in research you have unstructured problems, and for you are solving a new problem for the first time, and for solving this new problem for the first time you have to take inputs from diverse fields of knowledge. So, you are right that studying and that sociologists can contribute, economists can contribute, even politicians. A political sociologist may be interested that what will be the impact of opening of BPOs and malls on communal harmony in Kanpur society. You can argue, or the experience may show that with opening up more malls and more BPOs and more inter-ethnic, inter-religious associations, communal riots will, or probabilities of communal riots will reduce, or there may also be reasons because of which opening of these malls and can lead to more alienation among certain religious communities, and so creating the possibility of riots sometime. So, it depends. Now, towards the end, let us also talk a little bit about environment beliefs. Why? Because ultimately we are interested in environmental action at the global level, at the national level, at the regional level. We are interested in action, and for action we need to create lobbies, we need to create mobilization, we need to create movements. We know as a sociologist that people are mobilized not on the basis of objective knowledge or knowledge of objective facts, but knowledge as it gets translated into their belief systems. So, we have to look at people's environmental beliefs. There are still many people who say that environmental issues are nonsense. Even when the world population was only 1 billion, people used to say that we have reached a critical dimension, and if population growth increases further, there will be problem, there will be devastation, catastrophe, apocalypse, and this earth will not be able to survive more population. Then we had 2, we had 3, and now we have nearly 7. So, some people think that the environmental bogey is all useless. This is one extreme, and there are others who think that no, it is time to act. If nothing substantial is done during the coming decade or 2 decades, then this planet will become unlivable for human beings. Ultimately, what you do on the basis of your beliefs, your assumptions, your worldview, your perspective. So, we have to talk a little bit about beliefs. Beliefs are by definition the assumptions regarding relationships between two things. We use similar terms sometimes: beliefs, attitudes and values. Values are standards, attitudes are evaluation of something. Attitudes involve favorable or unfavorable attitudes, evaluation, and belief is basically your assumption regarding relationship between two things. This may be your belief that further growth of population will lead to catastrophic situation in the world. Further growth of population in India can produce catastrophic situation for world population. So, this is your assumption regarding two variables: growth of population in India and catastrophic situation in the world. Thus, the environmental beliefs refer to people's assumptions regarding causes and consequences of environmental problems and what strategies are going to succeed in the short term and long term. It has been found that in polluted, contaminated environments, people suffer not only from the physical effects of pollutants or contaminants, but they also suffer from various misconceptions and stigma. So, it is important to study beliefs for several reasons, that people may hold ecological beliefs, pro-environmental belief that something has to be done to maintain environment and undertake action to prevent destruction of natural environment, or they may hold an anthropocentric or instrumental belief that nature can be incessantly exploited for human ends. There are some people who are more towards ecological beliefs, and there are others who are more towards anthropocentric beliefs. Some may hold a belief in between the two. The beliefs affect their action, and therefore, in the study of environmental action, it is important to study belief system. Now, in the risk areas where people suffer from the physical effects of environmental hazards, the effects are socio-culturally interpreted. It is found that social stigmatization among the victims and discrimination against them can lead to extreme instability in the social life and social harmony. In one of our studies, one of our PhD students worked on the problem of environment beliefs, Purulia and North Pargan in West Bengal. This is a quote from there, that people with arsenic, in one district there was problem of shortage of water, in another there was problem of arsenic contamination, and we were comparing the two. Thus people with arsenic suffer from stigma. Sometimes arsenic patients are identified as leprosy patients, because people do not have environmental understanding, they do not have right understanding of impact of pollutants like arsenic. They say if somebody suffers from arsenicosis, then they take it to be a case of leprosy and are ostracized unkindly by society. The victims are abandoned not only by larger society, but also by their relatives and family members. For them, there is no difference between leprosy and arsenicosis. For doctors, it is the result of arsenic pollution, but for people, it is people have not known that there is something called arsenic, and their water contains arsenic, and these are the adverse consequences. And children of arsenic patients are not allowed to attend school and religious functions, as they are believed to have inherited a serious problem, something like leprosy, which might manifest any time and may be transferred to others. This phenomenon is similar to that observed in cases of HIV positive people in various parts of the country.
So, it is the problem of only developing countries?
No, everywhere. Such problems,
Misconceptions.
these misconceptions are everywhere. In absence of comprehensive knowledge about something, you have misconceptions, and there is no however educated it is, there is no society where there are no misconceptions about anything. Anything about which we lack scientific and comprehensive knowledge, we have misconceptions. There is a stigma, for example, in United States, there is a stigma against MSM, because they think that MSM is the cause of HIV. So, there is this is a fear, sometimes homophobia, this is called homophobia. Homophobia means the fear that somebody is MSM. Everywhere there are different kinds of misconceptions, because different things are important in different context, but there are everywhere misconceptions about something. The sources of beliefs, how can we change people's environmental belief? This stigma can be so great. We found in this research that already in their social structure they make a difference between Bangals and Ghotis. Those people who have come from Bangladesh, they are called Bangals, and they are stigmatized and they are ostracized. There is stigma against them. They are alienated from larger society. And due to arsenic, when cases of arsenocosis come, people are saying that this is a new disease which has come along with migrants from Bangladesh. There is no connection between migration and arsenic problem, but because people do not understand. So, likewise, wherever people do not understand connections between pollutants or impacts of development projects, adversities, they are likely to go for magic, witchcraft, superstitions and so on. We know that, like in Kanpur, we know that the water of Ganga is polluted because of tanneries, but some people who do not understand this connection, many rural folks, they may attribute this to Kali Yuga, that now it is Kali Yuga, the fourth stage of cycles of time, and it is because of Kali Yuga that we have this pollution in the river, and they will even pray the river Ganges. They will make an ideal of the river Ganga, goddess Ganga, and pray for removal of pollutants. So, this lack of knowledge. So, for correcting environmental beliefs, you have to act. The sources of beliefs of people can be folk wisdom, religious texts and religious organizations, education, media, migration, advertisement, political parties and leaders, and non-government organizations, particularly those organizations working in that specific field. Today in developing countries, there is a great hunger for development, and folk wisdom and traditions are reinterpreted to serve the goals of capitalism. Globalization, in sociological language we call it globalization, and during the independence struggle and in the post independence period in India, for example, philosophers, leaders and intellectuals favored synthesizing Western materialism and Eastern philosophy. So, the importance or the impact of Eastern philosophy has not died down. It is a source of beliefs, including beliefs about environment. It is difficult to convince the people of India that in the interest of survival of earth, they must volunteer for the present low levels of consumption or surrender inessential needs when the developed countries have so much of wasteful consumption. Actually, we need a new approach to tackle environmental problems. It has to be based on justice, equality, science, technological advancements, a better understanding of linkages, scientific linkages between man, environment and developmental processes. Now, religion, the modern media and political leaders are only promoting consumerism and commodification with little interest in sustainability of ecological process. The result is an anti-ecological belief. Nobody is bothered about environment. Everybody knows why the river Ganges is polluted in Kanpur or in Allahabad or in Kannauj, or in Varanasi, but nothing has been done. Government of India has also spent lakhs of rupees on this project, but nothing has been done, nothing is achieved. It is because people are not bothered. Either people do not understand the connection, they do not have the right kind of beliefs, they have the beliefs or they have the understanding, but there is no one to mobilize them, or there is tremendous hunger for socio-economic development, so much hunger for socio-economic development that they are ready to tolerate the other adverse effects on environment. Here one may ask what is the role of environmental consciousness. These are the questions of sociology which you can take up later for MPhil and PhD research. Role of environment consciousness, change of beliefs and behaviors among the common people and its consequence for social structure. Some people however think that the environment can be protected only when people at large develop a strong pro-ecological worldview, leading to philosophy of spiritualism, equality and simplicity. These are extreme views. You know little bit about environmental movements, We have had a number of environmental movements, though not so successful. We have had Chipiko in Uttarakhand, Apiko in Karnataka, then Narmada Bachao and smaller movements at several places in Kerala, particularly Shastra Sahitya Parishad, so many movements. But it seems that today the impact of all those movements is declining. There is a quote from Augustine, who worked on environment movements in our department, that this resulted in giving preference to large scale plantation of fast growing commercially viable species. Thus, the organic and composite nature of forests with varied flora and fauna had been destroyed. This means development, and thereby the people and the communities who were dependent on these forests were marginalized, causing disenchantment among them. In this milieu, the agrarian unrest continued after independence. Now, this is a small quote from his thesis. There is another quote from Shiva, Vandana Shiva in 91, ecological degradation and economic deprivation generated by the resource insensitivity and intensity of the classical model of development have resulted in conflicts. So, we can conclude here by saying a few things, that environmental issues are some of the most important issues of our times. Everybody talks about the end of earth caused by industrialization and insatiable human desire to attain higher and higher levels of material development. Climate change is a high probability risk. Though this is true that the developed countries are more responsible for environmental degradation and climate change, the developing countries too have to accept their part in protecting environment. They also see a link between rapid population growth and climate change. I think we stop here. This is a quote from UNFPA's State of World Population 2009, that 37 of the 41 National Adaptation Programs of Action, or NAPAs, that developing country governments had submitted to the UNFCCC by May 2009 explicitly link climate change and population and identify rapid population growth as a problem that either exacerbates the effects of climate change or hinders the ability of countries to adapt to it. Though the preparation of NAPAs, the least developed countries state their priorities and needs for adapting to climate change, the growth of population can contribute to freshwater scarcity or degradation of cropland, which may in turn exacerbate the impacts of climate change. So too can population growth make it more difficult for governments to alleviate poverty. So, we have limited time and we have to stop now. The point is that population is an important factor in environmental change, but we must know that population is not the only factor. Standard of living, and that also means value system, culture and technology play an important role in deciding climate change. Technology can be environment saving or technology can be environment polluting. So, thank you.